Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me. On the last episode, I talked about how do you decide which equipment to buy when you're outfitting your overland vehicle. There's so many choices on the market now, and marketing are always trying to convince us to spend more money and buy the latest and greatest. So if you haven't seen that video, go and check it out. And today, we're going to talk about the fourth way to decide on a piece of equipment, which is probably more important than all the other three put together. So if you're wondering what is the most important thing, stick around, we'll get into it right now. So when you're looking at outfitting your overlanded vehicle, the fourth criteria that you really need to consider is the price of any item that you're adding. And this might seem really obvious, but actually it turns out it's so much more important and so much more fundamental than most people realize. So yeah, I spent 2 years driving from Alaska to Argentina, 40,000 miles through 17 countries. Then I spent 3 years driving all the way around Africa, 54,000 miles through 35 countries. And a lot of people assume that I must be rich or I'm a trust fund kid, but that's not the case at all. I've funded these expeditions entirely from my own savings and what I've been able to earn on the road. So it's not like I have a huge stack of money. What it comes down to is I'm just really careful about how I spend my money. So when it came time to drive from Alaska to Argentina, I basically didn't have enough money to buy a winch or a rooftop tent or an LED light bar or a fridge. All of those things I decided weren't essential to the expedition. And I need to clarify there a little bit. I always say I didn't have enough money. What I really mean though, because obviously I had $10,000 in the bank, I mean, I had enough money. What I mean is I didn't prioritize spending it on those things. Instead, I prioritized spending it on gas in the tank so I could actually have adventure. In a real sense, I could have spent that $10,000 outfitting my Jeep, and then I wouldn't have had any money to take it anywhere, and I would have just had to keep going to work. Or I didn't spend any money outfitting the Jeep, and I spent all of that money to go and have adventures instead. So it really is a choice, and you get to decide how you want to strike that balance. Lots of people, they're commenting on my Alaska trip and they're saying, yeah, I wish I could take 3 months off work, but I can't afford it. And again, that comes down to your priorities and how you're choosing to spend money. I'm willing to bet that quite a few of those people, they have big 37-inch tires, they have multiple LED light bars, they have a really big fridge, maybe they've done an engine swap. So they're choosing to spend money on all of that stuff, which means they can't afford to take 3 months off work and go up to Alaska. So there you go. It's just your choice. If you choose not to spend money on all those upgrades, you will have more money left over. So for me, the air compressor example, the single is half the price of the dual. So straight away, that's extra money for me for gas in the tank that helped fund my Africa expedition. Same story with the fridge. I chose not to buy the bigger one, and then I had more money for gas in the tank. If I had gone with the bigger choice on both of those items, I would have either just had to go to work more, or what's even more insidious is my trip just would have been shorter. So story time, my friends Jared and Jen, they're of the Pioneering Spirit. Check them out on Instagram. I'll throw a link down in the description. Awesome, awesome people. They wanted to go and have an Africa adventure like I did. And reading around, it's really hard to get down to earth information. They thought they needed to build their Jeep into a huge big off-road monster. So they did a 4BT diesel conversion. They put enormous axles underneath it, big tires, all the off-road goodies, huge suspension. They spent close to $100,000 building up their Jeep. They took it to Africa, and yeah, they had an amazing trip. They loved it. But inevitably, the money ran out and they had to come home. And so they learned a really important lesson, and Jared now teaches a class at overland shows called How Not to Build Your Overland Vehicle. And his bottom line is their daily spending was about $50 a day. So his bottom line is for every $50 we put into our vehicle, that's a day less we now have in Africa. So they were forced to come home after a couple of years when the money ran out. They could have easily stayed in Africa another year, maybe even 2 years, if they had kept their Jeep more modest. They could have stuck with the stock engine and the stock axles, and as I've proved, it can work, and all of that extra money would have been for adventures. So this is the really important fundamental here. Whenever you're thinking about upgrading your vehicle, sit down and think about, do you really need to air up your tires that little bit faster? Or would you rather put that money aside and realize that's the gas you're going to buy when you're up in the Arctic Circle because you've driven up the Dempster Highway and you've fulfilled one of your dreams and one of your enormous trip goals? That's the reality that we're talking about. And that's why it's so important to get your priorities right and to think carefully about how you're spending your money to upgrade your vehicle. And let me be really clear here. I'm not saying that you should buy cheap upgrades or even go without some items like an air compressor. No, that's not what I'm saying. So I stuck with the brand name quality air compressor from ARB, but I just chose the lower model. Same story with my fridge. Very high quality fridge from Dometic that has been excellent, but I chose to buy one of their cheaper ones because it's so much smaller. Same story with my suspension, same story with so many of the upgrades here on the Jeep. I chose quality brand name products, but I didn't buy the top of the line from the catalog because it wasn't necessary. I bought on the lower end, so I saved all of that money, but I still have high quality products that clearly were up to the task and survived all those harsh miles in Africa. So that's what I'm saying here. Don't buy cheap junk because it'll break. Buy quality, but be careful. Don't get suckered into buying the top of the line from each brand. Just buy what you need. I needed an air compressor, so I bought the lowest one that ARB make. I needed a fridge. I bought one of the smallest ones that Dometic make. This was my rationale. It keeps it lighter, it takes up less space, it uses less electricity, and most importantly, I have money left over for gas in the tank, so I actually got to go and really have an adventure instead of just having the world's greatest vehicle, but no money left over to go and have adventures. So there you have it. I know discussions about money can be a little bit taboo and it's not something people always feel comfortable talking about. So that's why I wanted to get this video out to you guys and let you know how important it is. And I always find it strange. Sometimes when I post on the internet what I've done and where I've gone in the world, people say, oh, you must be rich or you're a trust fund kid. And I can tell you that's not true at all. But then sometimes when I post here on YouTube, people say, oh, you're just too poor to buy bigger tires or like do a V8 swap. So it's kind of interesting. Some people react and think that I'm too rich, and then some people react and think that I'm too poor, which is really a strange divide. The reality is, I just prioritize how I spend my money so I can go and have these enormous adventures. And that's what I want you to take away from this video. Think carefully, because money is limited and your time is limited. And if you spend all your time earning money, you're not going to have time to go and have adventures. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if this has been helpful. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And as always, there's plenty more advice videos like this coming to teach you what you need to know to get out and you have your own global overland adventures. So until next time, maybe I'll bump into you on the road.